sometimes the smallest inheritance carries the biggest secret. The laughter in that lawyer's office still echoed in Ava Collins' mind long after she left it behind. The day had begun with cold coffee and colder stares. A family dressed in black, pretending to grieve but waiting only for their slice of Howard Collins's fortune. Ava hadn't come expecting much, but even she wasn't prepared for the humiliation that followed. While her cousin smirked behind designer sunglasses, the lawyer slid an envelope across the table. No check, no property deed, just a wrinkled $5 bill and a tarnished brass key. The room erupted in cruel laughter, Regina clutching her pearls as tears of amusement rolled down her face. Marcus slapping the table like it was the best joke he'd ever heard. Even the lawyer smirked. Ava sat there silent, her throat tight, her heart pounding. But as her fingers traced the cool metal of that old key, she noticed two faintly scratched letters, S.R. A spark flickered in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but that tiny engraving would lead her to a truth that would change everything she thought she knew about her grandfather, her family, and herself. The sky outside was bruised purple as Ava drove north, the headlights cutting through mist and memory. The laughter from the will reading looped in her head like a cruel song. She almost threw the envelope out the window, but the key kept calling to her, a whisper from another lifetime. S.R. Stillwater Ridge. A town frozen in her childhood memories where her grandfather had worked at the train station and taught her that everything worth building started small. He'd cut her out of his life when she refused to give up her baby Emma. And yet this key, it felt like a message. 2 hours later, Ava arrived. The town hadn't changed, same crumbling storefronts, same flickering streetlights. The old train station stood at the edge of town like a ghost, wrapped in rust and ivy. She climbed through a break in the fence, boots crunching on broken glass. Around the back, half hidden by vines, was a rusted door. Painted on it, barely legible, were the words, Storage 7. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she slid the brass key into the lock. It resisted at first, then turned. The door swung inward with a sigh that smelled of dust and time. Ava stepped inside, her phone flashlight slicing through the dark. The room was small, concrete walls, air thick with age. In the center sat a trunk, massive and ancient, covered in leather straps and years of silence. She unbuckled it slowly, her breath catching with every creak. Inside were journals, folders, and papers sealed with her grandfather's handwriting. She opened the first journal and felt the world tilt beneath her. Howard Collins hadn't just been a station manager. He had been the founder of Stillwater Transit Solutions, a freight company that had once quietly merged into a corporate empire now known as Summit Logistics. Beneath the documents lay stock certificates worth millions, and tucked between two folders, a sealed envelope addressed to her. Ava's name written in trembling ink. She sat down on the cold floor, her hands shaking, and began to read. "Ava, if you're reading this, you found the key, and I'm proud of you." The words blurred through her tears. Her grandfather's letter was not a will, it was an apology. Howard confessed to judging her unfairly, to mistaking her strength for defiance and love for weakness. He wrote of the $5 bill, explaining it had been his last dollar when he started his company. "Real wealth," he wrote, "begins with courage, not capital." The brass key, he revealed, had guarded his life's true work, a secret fortune of $18.7 million hidden away from the family's greed. "Your cousins received comfort," he wrote. "You, Ava, received purpose." He asked her to use the money not for indulgence but for impact, to finish her degree, raise Emma well, and find a problem worth solving. "The world needs more people like you," he ended. "People who choose the hard right over the easy wrong." By the time Ava folded the letter, her tears had turned to quiet determination. The humiliation she'd felt was gone. In its place was clarity and a mission. When news of the inheritance broke, the vultures circled. Regina called first, her voice honeyed with guilt. Marcus followed, offering to help manage her new wealth. Aunt Patricia cried about her bills. Uncle Jerome sent threats wrapped in polite letters. Ava said no to them all. No more manipulation, no more apologies. She had something none of them would ever understand, a reason, With the help of Howard's trusted lawyer, she transferred the shares, sold a fraction, and poured her energy into a dream that had been whispering in her heart since that night, rebuilding the old train station. Not as a shrine to her grandfather's success, but as a place for new beginnings. She worked side by side with contractors, cleaned floors, painted walls, and planned every corner of what would become the Stillwater Station Community Center, a sanctuary for single parents, students, and dreamers who just needed someone to believe in them. The day the center opened, the morning sun spilled gold across the restored brick walls. The old platform, once abandoned, buzzed with life again. Children laughed in the daycare where passengers once waited for trains. The baggage hall had become a thrift shop and food pantry. Upstairs, classrooms buzzed with GED students learning late into the night. Ava stood on that platform, Emma by her side, and whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." Her story spread faster than wildfire, local news, then national headlines. A single mother inherits $5 and turns it into millions for others. Reporters asked her why she gave so much away. Ava smiled and said, "Because wealth means nothing if it only serves one person." Her words resonated far beyond the small town of Stillwater Ridge. Across the country, people began restoring their own forgotten buildings, turning grief and legacy into hope. Years later, the laughter of her cousins had become a ghost of the past. The community center thrived. Hundreds of families rebuilt their lives within its walls. When Emma grew up, she didn't want fame or luxury. She wanted to follow in her mother's footsteps. Together, they opened a second center in the city where Ava had once struggled. Each room, each class, each child's smile became another chapter in Howard's unseen legacy. The old brass key and $5 bill were framed in the lobby, symbols of how humility could birth transformation. Visitors would stand before them in silence, whispering that they, too, wanted to find their own key. For Ava, the meaning was simple, that sometimes life's cruelest moments are just disguised beginnings. 20 years after that humiliating day, Ava returned to the lawyer's office. The same man who once smirked at her now stood to shake her hand, humbled. She was there not to receive, but to give. With a steady hand, she signed the documents establishing the Ava Collins Foundation, a fund that would provide full scholarships for children of single parents. Later that night, she stood once more on the platform of Stillwater Station, as the sun melted behind the tracks. Hundreds gathered, the golden light washing over faces filled with gratitude. Ava held the brass key one last time and smiled. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the smallest inheritance unlocks the greatest purpose." She turned to the crowd, her voice warm, steady, and full of meaning. If this story touched you, share it. Leave a comment, subscribe, and carry its message forward. Because every one of us has a key waiting to be found. The wind rose, the audience silent, and somewhere deep inside her heart, Ava could almost hear Howard whisper, "You found yours."